Hey guys, in this section I want to create an XML file and I want to create a schema as well. Now, we went over a lot of this in the PowerPoint, but sometimes it's easier to learn when you're seeing it actually being done. So I'm going to create a new folder, and this is going to be Chapter 3, Section 2. Alright, so I'm going to open this folder and I'm going to create a new document, and I'm going to call this movies.xml. so this is an XML document now, so I'm going to edit that. You can see the little icon changes as well if you're in Windows. I'm going to open this in Notepad and I'm going to create the document from scratch. So as you saw in the tutorial, the first thing we have is the declaration. So we want to say less than, then a question mark, and then XML. Alright, that's the opening tag for this, and then we have the question mark and a greater than sign. And in here we just want to put in the version that we're using. So we'll say version, and we are going to be using 1.0. We can also put the encoding attribute, but it's not needed. So this is what this is going to be. It's going to be a structure of movie data. So we'll have different movies, which will have a title, a year, a genre, and a director. So like I said in the PowerPoint, we need to have a root element, and there can only be one instance of this root element, and in this case it's going to be called movie. I'm sorry, movies with an S, and that has to have a closing tag. Alright, so that's our root element. The next thing we want to add is our child elements. So in the movies element we will have the movie element. Alright, so in that child element we want to have some sub-child elements. So we'll have title, we'll have year, genre, and finally we'll have director. Oh, sorry, I can't type today. Alright, so this is the movie element. We're going to have a couple of these, so I'm going to copy this, and let's say we'll have 5 movies in this document. So the first one we'll say The Godfather. I'm just going to put a couple movies that I enjoy, and the year for that was 1972. The genre would be, I guess, drama, and the director is Francis Ford Coppola. Alright, so that's one movie object or element. So let's add another one. Let's say Superbad, another one of my favorites. We'll say 2007. Genre is a comedy. Director is Greg Mottola. So next we have The Departed from Boston, so that's one of my favorites. 2006. Genre is drama. Director is Martin Scorsese. Let's see, C-O-R-S-E-S-E. So next we have, let's say, Saving Private Ryan, and that was made in 1998 and is, I guess, an action. Director was Steven Spielberg. Actually, I think it's E-R-G. And finally we have The Expendables, which was in 2010. It was also an action. and director was Sylvester Stallone. Alright, so we have our document. Let's save this, and we can, like I said, XML it doesn't do anything. It doesn't display much. We can look at it in a browser. So if I go to my file and I go to open with, actually I'll just open it with Internet Explorer. I try not to use that browser, but so you can see it just displays exactly like it does when it's in our editor. Alright, so same thing. I mean, we can style this a little bit if we want to. We can use CSS, but we're not going to do that in this section. So that's our document. What I want to do now is create a schema, and we're going to use DTD, which is document type definition. Actually, before we do that, I actually want to validate this XML. So I'm going to copy all of it and go to my browser and just search for XML validator. I don't know why this is taking so long. Alright, so W3 Schools has a nice XML validator, so I'm just going to paste this in here and click on validate, and you can see we have no errors found. Now let's take out one of these closing movie tags and try to validate it. And then you can see it tells us exactly where it is. There's an error on line 33 at column 15. Opening and end tag mismatch. Movie line 0 and movie. So it tells us exactly where it is and what it is. So this is a really good tool. If you're going to be working with XML, I suggest that you bookmark this page just so you can validate your files. You can also validate it through here as well if you want to add the actual file, if you want to point a link to the file. You can also validate against DTD. We're going to create a DTD file right now. So in that same folder, I am going to create a new document, and I'm going to call it movies.dtd. Now we don't have to do this. We don't need a second document. We can actually put it in line at the top of our XML file, but I just figured that I'd do it externally just so you can see how it's done. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to type out the format that we need in order to validate each element. So the syntax is less than and then an exclamation mark, and we want to put the word element, and then we want the element name, and then we want the type. So that's the syntax that we need to use in a DTD document. Now the type can be a couple different things. One thing, if the element doesn't contain any content, then that's an empty element, so we have to define it here. If the element contains only other elements and no content, and you can see that in this case the movie element doesn't contain content in itself, but it contains other elements, child elements with content, so we have to specify that if that's the case. We can also have a mixed type, which would be a combination of child elements and character data, and then the last kind of type would be any content allowed by DTD. Before we create this file, I actually want to see if I can show you some examples. Well, here's an example right here in this validator, and we'll be using this as well. So we have, like I said, we have the element keyword, and then we have the element name. In this case is note, and this is going to be the root. This is coming from right here, note. So this is the DTD validating this XML, just so you know that. Now inside note, we don't have any content, we just have other elements. So the type, we're just going to list all of those elements. All right. Okay, so the next element we have is 2. That's right here. There's no other elements inside of this. There's only content, and that's going to be called PC data. Okay, and that just means parse data. It's just data that's going to be read by XML, by the system. So if you have just an element with just content in it, then this is going to be the type. So what I want to do is make our own DTD document going by this example. So I'm going to make this a little smaller. Now the first thing we want to have is our root element, which is movies. So our element name will be movies. Oh. Now the type, if we look, we always want the first instance or the first child. So in this case it's movie. Alright, so that's all we need for the type. I'm sorry, this should be in parentheses. Alright, so the next thing, let's just copy this. The next thing we have is our, after movies, is our movie element. So let's just take that S off. And the movie element has some sub-elements. We have title, year, genre, and director. So that's what we need to put here. Title, year, genre, and director. So that's all set. The next thing we have is title. So let's just paste that in, and we have title. Now if we look at title, all title has in it is the content. Okay, so this is data that's going to be parsed. So this is PC data. So we want to put a £, PC data. Now I can copy this because the rest of our elements, year, genre, and director, are all going to be parsed data. Alright, so let's save this. Now, right now these are two separate files and they're not linked. In order for them to be linked, we have to declare our file, our DTD file, inside of our XML file. And to do that is easy. We just want to do doc type, and then we want our root element, so in this case is movies, and then we want to write the word system and then our file name, which is movies.dtd. And finally we just, actually the file name should be in quotes, double quotes. Alright, so that's it. That's how you include or declare an external DTD file. So what I want to do now is actually validate this just to make sure that we did it right. So I'm going to actually use this here. I'm going to copy all of my XML and paste that in. Whoop. Not sure what happened there. Alright, so paste that in, and I want to remove this because obviously we have to have this in line to validate. So I'm going to grab my DTD data, put that right under the XML declaration. Alright, so that looks good. Alright, now this says IE only, but it actually does work in Chrome. Alright, so this page contains 2 errors. Error on line 2, start tag invalid element name. Okay, so invalid element name, we have movies, huh, I'm not exactly sure why that happened. Oh, I'm sorry, we have to add our doc type here. So we want to say doc type movies and then brackets, and we want to include all of our DTD data inside of that. So we want bracket and then greater than. Alright, so that should, alright, so now we have no errors found. Alright, so we've built an XML document that is valid with a DTD schema. So that's it for this section. Next we'll be looking at JSON and some of the syntax of objects, arrays, and stuff like that. So I will see you in the next section.